I have been living in Seattle now for almost a year, which means that the lease on the apartment that I'm living in is almost up. I decided that although it has been a really great base for when I first arrived in the city, I'm going to look for a new place and see if I can find something better. So in this video, I'm going to take you along on my thought process, what we have now, what we're looking for, what area I want to be in, what my budget is, and how I went about finding all of these different apartments so that when you are starting to look for a place in Seattle, you have all the information that you need as well. I'm also going to take you along on 8 showings, just quick snapshots of how much the apartment is, the square footage, and sort of what you get, why I liked it, why I didn't like it, and why I didn't choose it. None of the apartments in this video are any of the ones that we actually signed a lease for this week, but it will give you an idea of what's available in a certain price range. Right now I live in a very dark, as you can see from, I've had to point all of the lights in my kitchen. It's not even midday yet. Here in Seattle, it's November. It's already getting darker anyway. The big dark, it's quite gray. And on those days, this apartment is so dark. I work from home most days, so it can be a little bit sad. I currently live in one of the newer apartment complexes that have all these amenities like a gym, a rooftop, shared barbecue, like this big shared indoor space where you can come and watch TV. It was great when I first moved here. I've never lived in a building like this before, and I really enjoyed it, and I thought maybe when we started looking that I might find another place like it. But overall, this space is really small. We live in just under 600 square feet in what they call an open 1-bedroom, which is essentially a studio, but you have like partitioned walls. I'm gonna do a full tour of this apartment and the building next week, so it goes live once I move out. When I first moved into the building, they gave us 6 weeks free on our lease. So it meant that even though the price of the apartment was $2,007 plus $200 for parking, it ended up being about $1,900 a month with those 6 weeks off divided by 12 months. So it was a good deal at the time, but now that we're up for renewal, we are not getting that offer and the rent will be going up. So we'll be looking at spending almost $2,300 just on the apartment and our parking, and that is the main reason that we're looking to go somewhere else. I know that there are apartments here for less in this very neighborhood, so that's what today's video is all about. For the new apartment, we're looking for some modern amenities. I still want to have a dishwasher. I still want to have in-unit washer dryer. I want more light. That is one of the biggest priorities. And we also need more storage space, or at least equal storage space to what we have now, because we have the normal things like clothes, suitcases, shoes. We also have a ton of work equipment. I have cameras and tripods and computer stuff and all this sort of thing for filming and for working remotely. And then my boyfriend is a soccer coach and he has a ton of equipment that he brings home from work every day, and we need space for it. So that is one of the main priorities that we're looking for in these apartments. I currently live right on the cusp of Wallingford and Fremont, and that is kind of where we want to stay. It's really great for my boyfriend's commute to get everywhere that he needs to be. I really like this neighborhood. You can walk to Wallingford on 45th and have all of those cafes and restaurants and the supermarket, and then we can walk to Fremont Main Street where you have even more awesome bars, restaurants, craft breweries. So yeah, we want to stay in this neighborhood as much as possible. It's okay, like right now we're right in the middle, and I'm happy to go like a little bit further into Fremont or a little bit further into Wallingford, but like that's the area that we're looking in. I did stretch up to Green Lake for a few apartments because the prices were so good, and I love running around Green Lake, so it would be cool to be closer to the park. But those are the 3 neighborhoods that we stayed in and that all the apartment tours are going to be in this video. So what's my budget? With what we're paying now being about $1,900 a month, we want it to be at or below that price. I looked anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000, or like just under $2,000. On Zillow, I set it to $2,000 and saw like what came up and then went from there. Now, when it comes to what websites to use to find apartments, I started with Zillow. That was my jumping off point for finding management companies. And so once you find an apartment that you like, you can contact the management company, and then you can also go on their website where they have more up-to-date information about what other apartments they have in the area. Because sometimes Zillow is out of date, like an apartment has already been taken, but it's still on Zillow, so you get your hopes up. But if you can find all of the different management companies that service the area that you're looking to rent in, you can really have more up-to-date information. But the best thing that I did, and the way that I found the majority of the more affordable apartments, was to just walk up and down the streets of Fremont and Wallingford and look for rent signs anywhere. Most management companies, if they have an apartment available inside a building, are going to put up like an A-frame sign or like a little sign in the grass. Some apartment buildings just have the phone number of the management company on the sign, so you can call and see if something is available if you like the building and the location. And this was how I was like most successful in finding the most affordable places, and I already knew the area, so I knew it was a place that I wanted to live in. And again, it allowed me to find management companies that I didn't find on Zillow, and then they also had more apartments available on their website, which was another way that I found a lot of the apartments in Fremont. So highly recommend doing that in the neighborhood that you want to live in. I found the patch of natural light in my apartment. So let's tour the apartments, shall we? The first apartment that I toured was in Fremont, in the northern part of Fremont Avenue, where there are another hub of like restaurants and bars and cafes. And it's an area of Fremont that I really like. It's a little bit more residential, a little bit quieter, and this apartment was perfectly located. The price was $1,650. It was 800 square feet. And it had free street parking, of which there was a ton when we went to visit. Other pros are, even at this price point, it had a dishwasher and it had an in-unit washer and dryer. But although it was 800 square feet, so much of that square footage was in the bedroom, which is not where I need it. I don't spend that much time in my bedroom. I go to bed in it. I wake up, maybe I'll have coffee in bed, and then I'm up and I want my living space to be where the majority of the square footage is, and this apartment just didn't have it. We would have had to give up our current dining table and chairs because it wasn't going to fit in there with our couch and our coffee table, and so although it also had a lot of natural light, it had no storage space. It had one closet in the entire apartment, and it was just in the bedroom. The other closet was taken up by the washer dryer, and you couldn't even close the door. The bathroom was really small. It just felt like the space wasn't being utilized very well, and so we kept it on our list for a really long time because the price was so good. They were offering a month free, and with it there being free street parking, it just made the price so great for a unit that had pretty much everything that we were looking for except the storage space. So we kept trying to think of ways that we might be able to make storage space for ourselves or buy things that would allow us to have more storage, like dresser drawers or things that we could put under the bed. But in the end, we decided not to go with this one. The second apartment that I went to was in Wallingford, and it was in like a single-story building that had only 4 or 5 units, which was a big perk. It's a slightly older building, so it had a lot of character. I liked the wood floors. The kitchen had these like interesting like 70s shelving that were kind of cool and quirky, and the price was really good. It was $17.45. It had free street parking, and again, in a part of Wallingford that had a lot of free street parking, so that was a big bonus. It was 530 square feet, which sounded small, but the space felt bigger because the living room and the kitchen were like where a lot of the space was. But the con was that it was old. It definitely hasn't been updated in a while. Whoever moved out, they haven't like cleaned up enough at the minute, so when I came in it just felt like there were like pieces of wood everywhere and like it just unfinished parts of the kitchen. There was no dishwasher. There was a shared washer dryer where you have to use quarters. There's no app. There were a few buildings we looked at where you had to do your laundry with quarters, which feels really inconvenient. But again, it was a really nice space and it did have a decent amount of storage, and I liked the quirkiness of the apartment. But in the end, for the price, we ruled it out. The third apartment that we looked at was right in the center of downtown Fremont, just off of Fremont Ave and 38th, I believe, or 39th. And so you are steps from all of the awesome restaurants and bars and cafes that surround that part of town. You're really close to the Burke Gilman Trail to get over to Ballard or to go to Gasworks or just to have a nice run, which is one of my favorite places to go for a run. I really liked this apartment. The price was $17.95 plus $125 for parking. So it was right on the edge of what we were looking to pay, but it was a beautiful space. It had a huge balcony that overlooked Fremont Avenue, which was really nice. The living space was ample. There was a decent amount of storage. It had like some closets in the hallway. It had a huge closet in the bedroom. And then the bathroom had some good storage as well. It had a dishwasher, but it did not have in-unit washer dryer. You had to share that with the whole building, of which there, I believe, were just over 20 apartments in it. And although it was app operated, it was $3 for a wash and $3 for a dry, which is double the price of anywhere else that we looked. And I know it doesn't sound like that much, but when you're washing your bedding, you're washing your towels, you're washing all your clothes, sports stuff, like I think that adds up. So that was definitely a big negative. But otherwise the space was awesome. The apartment and location were really great. So it stayed on our list for a long time. The next place I looked at is incredibly close to where I live and is a similar style of apartment. It's in one of the newer buildings, in fact, a newer building than the one that I currently live in. It has a gym and a rooftop and barbecues and shared spaces. It has an Amazon hub for packages. So it has all the modern amenities. It had a dishwasher, it had an in-unit washer dryer, really nice new washer dryer. It was incredibly bright, had a beautiful outdoor space that was kind of like a patio because it was on not the ground floor, but at the back of the building, it sort of was on the ground floor. And then you had all these like potted plants that you could take care of or put your own stuff in, like herbs and stuff, which would have been pretty cool. It was $16.75 and it had, I believe, 525 square feet. The main issue was that it was still kind of like what I live in now, which is an open one bedroom. It doesn't solve the problem of like privacy when you have guests stay over on like, on the couch bed, and it just doesn't feel home enough, I guess. Like it just felt a little bit sanitized because it's so new and so few people have lived in it, and it's just like so modern and clean. And while that's nice, it wasn't necessarily exactly what I was looking for this time. The next apartment was probably my favorite apartment of all of the ones that I looked at. Again, it was in that sort of like northern area of Fremont, just off Linden Street, a couple of blocks away from Fremont Ave, and close to all of those bars and restaurants, and like my favorite burger place, You Need a Burger. It's exceptional. The price was $1,995, but it included a parking spot that was just under the building. And actually, it sort of includes two spots because you essentially have your own garage and driveway. So you can pull all the way into the covered carport, and then you can also have another car behind it. So if you have one car or two cars, or if you have a car and then you have some friends come over, because parking in that area seemed like it was pretty difficult to get. So that was an added bonus. And the apartment itself is super spacious, so bright. There were so many windows, literally on every side. You had north facing, you had east facing, and then in the bedroom you had south facing. It had a washer dryer, it had a dishwasher, but it was at the very top end of our budget. That was going to be, over $2,000 with bills. And so it put it like right at the very top of what we wanted to be paying. It also has a lot of carpet. And I'm not going to lie, I'm not a big carpet fan. I don't have any carpets now, so I don't have a vacuum. I don't have any sort of carpet cleaner. I find them a little bit icky. With our apartment now, you can sweep every day or every couple of days. You can Swiffer. It just feels a lot more manageable to keep clean. Carpets are way less manageable. So I set up viewings at 2 apartments in Green Lake. Both of them were 2 bedrooms and at a really good price, which is what made me head a little bit further north than my original sort of Fremont-Wallingford border. Plus, I really love Green Lake, the lake. And it would be really cool to live close by and be able to just like pop outside and go for a walk around the lake, or on a weekend go for a run. So yeah, that was the appeal of going to these places. The first place was inside a house. It was like a basement apartment of someone's home. And she told me that when she bought the house, it had already had an apartment in it, and she's had tenants over the years since she's lived there for over 25 years. The price was right at $1,700 with free street parking, and the space was incredible. It was 900 square feet, so by far the biggest apartment at that price point that I was gonna find. But of course, that comes with a few cons. The apartment was so dark. It's a basement apartment. All you get are these like windows, these tiny windows at like the top of every room, paired with the fact that most of the walls and floor were like wood paneling everywhere. It was just so dark. You'd need to buy so many lights to be able to feel like it's daytime down there. It was also just really dated. The paneling, the kitchen was really old. The bedrooms just felt tired. Like it hasn't had an update perhaps since she bought the house. So it just, paired with the fact that the street parking was also a mess, it's, I just don't think that you're gonna get any parking on that street if you finish work after 6 or 7 o'clock. So it had to be ruled out. The second Green Lake apartment really appealed to us because it had 2 bedrooms again. The price was really similar. It was $16.95. Parking was included. There is like a parking lot in the building, or like next to the building, but there are only 5 spots, and it's sort of like a first come first serve situation. And then because it's located right in the center of Green Lake, street parking can be an issue. So that was like a red flag right away. But the space is so bright. It's 560 square feet, so it's definitely smaller than the other Green Lake one. But the 2 bedrooms would be like 1 bedroom for us, which was the bigger one, and then like an office space. It also had a ton of storage in both bedrooms. So it would mean like this second space could be both an office and like a nice place to put away all of our work equipment at the end of the workday. But the living room was like a little bit weird. The living kitchen area had like a dining space where the floor was tiled, and then the other side of the room was carpeted, but it wasn't like a straight line between the tile and the carpet. It was like this Tetris shape, which was a little bit peculiar. But anyway, the space was nice. It was really bright, but no dishwasher. And the laundry was again coin operated under the building to be shared with everyone in the building. So great price, nice space, super bright, but it just didn't tick enough boxes for it to be like a contender for us. The last apartment ended up being one of my favorites, and I walked away from it thinking I could really happily live here, even though it didn't check pretty much any of the boxes for what we were looking for. It was located in Wallingford, like right on the edge of Wallingford and Fremont, not too far from where I live now. It was a nice big space, just under 600 square feet, but it felt so much bigger because it was so bright. It was also in a little bit of an older building. It had a little bit more character. I really liked the wood floors. I liked the kitchen. It had these like older wooden cabinets that had been like painted all white. It still had one of those like chopping boards that you can pull out from the cabinet, which I had in an old apartment like back in my early 20s, and it was like, I don't know, a little bit of nostalgia. It was nice. It had all these like 60s and 70s like retro style wood accents and shelves, and then it also had a ton, I mean the most storage that I have seen in any apartment in the United States. Like there were 2 huge closets off the bathroom, like in the hallway before the bathroom. The bathroom was a really big space. The bedroom was a perfectly fine, acceptable space with a really big closet again. And then the living room was just this like big, open, bright space. Though it faced east, but there wasn't anything blocking the way. Like, it was kind of higher up, so you got a lot of light, unlike the apartment that I have now, which faces west but is like blocked by a ton of trees, which makes this apartment so dark. It didn't have a dishwasher, it had a shared washing machine, but the price was $15.25, and the parking outside was only $75 a month, so it makes the whole apartment $1,600, which is an insanely good price. It just came down to the lease terms in the end, but also Luke wants a dishwasher because he's the one that does all the dishes, so that was a fair point. But the apartment was really cute, and I think that price is, like, you're not gonna beat it for what you're getting in that apartment. If you want that sort of character and like just something a little bit quirky and different, that was one of my favorite apartments that we looked at on this whole situation. Something you want to keep in mind when you start looking for apartments in Seattle is that you can't look too early. I knew that we were moving out of this apartment in late November, but I couldn't start looking for another apartment until really the first week of November, because apartments come and go so quickly in Seattle, and you have to be ready to like sign a lease and get moved in, or at least start paying your lease pretty quickly after you find the apartment that you want. The longest like wait time or grace period that I've seen is 2 weeks. So I mean, we just put a deposit on our apartment, and in 2 weeks time we'll get the keys and we'll start paying rent. That is the longest amount of time that I've seen as a grace period. I've never seen anyone be like, I'm gonna sign this lease and move in like 6 weeks time. And no. As for the application process in Seattle, the norm seems to be to have a 600 credit score or higher, to have had 12-month lease in good standing in the last year or so. And then for the people that are moving in, so everyone that's going to be on the lease, in this instance, it's going to be me and my boyfriend, our monthly income combined has to be 3 times more than the price of the rent. So we have to be earning 3 times more than what our rental price is per month. It's pretty straightforward. There's always an application fee. Often it's per person, so it can be anywhere from $25 to $50 per person just to get the application in and find out that you're approved. And then the price of a deposit also varies. A lot of apartments that I've seen want a full month's rent as your deposit. Other apartments, like the one I live in now, this one was only $300, so it can vary enormously. So just keep that in mind as you are looking as well. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. It really supports my channel. Make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss any more Seattle videos to see what life is like here. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below, and I will see you next time.